Hi everybody, welcome to our overview of Chapter 2 in Nordhaus. We're going to be looking at the trait approach to leadership. This approach, historically, was one of the first attempts to really study leadership. Basically identifying that there were certain traits that made great leaders. They were all men, they were all dashingly good looking, and they were all white. And that was a characteristic of leadership. If you are doing any historical connotations on leadership, you need to look at this theory. Whether you agree with it or not, it is historically one of the first ways that leadership was studied. Remember what I told you about this textbook, and I'm going to keep going back to this. I'm going to present you with 15 different leadership theories in this course. My guess is you will disagree with some of them, and you will agree with some of them. I am in complete disagreement with this theory. This is not a theory I like, I support, and would never include in research, but that's me. Some of you might enjoy this theory, and it might be something that helps you as you determine your approaches. But historically, this is an important one, and I want you to kind of understand where it comes from so that you can use it for some of the other theories as we get into a little bit deeper discussion. So, trait theory comes out of the great man or great white man theory. Basically, we believed in the early 1900s that there were specific qualities and characteristics of great men that were political, social, and military leaders. They were prominent, they were respected, and we just believed that they were incredible people. Try to think about what the 1900s looked like. There wasn't television, there was very little radio, or no radio at all, and the images that were presented of people were images that were put in the paper, and getting a glimpse of what a leader looked like was something that you couldn't necessarily do. So that's the great theory of leadership and where trait theory emerged from. So what are the characteristics that were most looked upon as being possessed by great men? Well, as I said before, they were white, they were tall, they were married, they were well-built, they were dashingly good-looking. Is that fair? Well, I don't know. It is what it was in the 1900s. How could we change and prevent this stereotype? Well, I would argue, despite what people say about media being a bad thing right now and potentially making our leaders more transparent or being more critical of them, media did change the stereotype in a positive way, because once we saw other people assume leadership roles, it made it much more possible for somebody to become a great leader. So, in addition to this great man theory, you had to be a patriot, you had to be a nationalist. All presidents and politicians of the early 1900s were great men, and leaders should emulate them and look up to them, and this is what our society should be and what our society presents. Think back to your studies of history. Have you heard any negative connotations about presidents of the early 1900s? There's very few. Ask yourself, when did this start and what did it look like when it started? I would argue that it started potentially with Jimmy Carter. Some would say potentially with Nixon. But presidents of the early 1900s, all our presidents and our perceptions of them were extremely positive. And a lot of this related to this notion and this concept of patriotism. So, I asked, have you heard negative perceptions on George Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama? And obviously the answer is yes, you have. And the reason being that you've heard negatives on them more because we have the media. And we're much more transparent with our leaders, and the traits are much more scrutinized by public opinion. So if we were in a face-to-face class, what I would have you do is to take each of these four men and debate what their best trait is and what their worst trait is. So if you're watching this on video right now, take a few minutes and just stop and think about what the best trait is for each of them and what the worst trait is for each of them. Most of the time in a face-to-face class, one of the things that will come up will specifically look at one of these four men. And the number of times I've taught this, and I've taught this course in the business department, at Point Park. I taught it in the education department here. The president that normally solicits the most feedback on this list is Bill Clinton. Most of the time, people will say the same exact positive and negative on Clinton. It doesn't matter how many groups I put people in. Almost everybody says positively he was extremely charismatic. And negative, they say that he was untruthful and told lies. And think about that in terms of performance as President of the United States. Did charisma have anything to do with any of the policy that he set? I'd argue no. Did unfaithfulness to his wife have anything to do with the policy he set? Absolutely not. So when we look at their traits, we're not drawn to the traits that they did at the job. We're drawn to the traits that they particularly expressed in how the media portrayed it. One of the ones that everybody always says for George Bush, when you think of George Bush, you think of read my lips, no new taxes. And that's one of the negative perspectives that people have on Bush. So Stodgill really took this trait study and broke it down in 1948. Found that people are situational leaders in general, and that leadership itself is situational, and that people who are leaders in one situation might not be in another. And this advanced the study on trait leadership, and trait leadership itself became very situational in its performance and its appearance as well to others. So I ask this question because all of you are in a class to become school principals. How many of you would feel comfortable leading an in-service of 500 teachers? How many of you would feel comfortable leading a school district against a union strike? How many of you would feel comfortable talking to an entire staff of teachers after the death of a student? This one, top one, I could do very easily. Second one, probably not as much. Third one, I would need the help of a guidance counselor or a more calm, better, more articulate teacher, I would say, to help me. How many of you would have no problems with doing something childish as a part of your principal position? I'll give you an example of this. The ice bucket challenge was very popular a few years ago. That's something that a lot of school principals and school personnel did, posted online and displayed. I entered administration very young in my career. I did it in my mid-20s. Obviously, as you can tell by watching this video, I'm not exactly the tallest guy and I'm not exactly the biggest guy. I had a professor who talked to me about the kiss a pig theory. And he said that at my age and my experience level, the one thing that I never wanted to do, no matter what, was to kiss a pig. And what he meant by that was, if I'm a building principal, I never do anything childish. I never do anything that would present me in the light of something that wasn't fully professional. He said, because you're remembered for stuff like that. And for me, that always stuck with me. So I'm never going to be the one that goes out and kisses the pig or does the ice bucket challenge. Some of you might be more comfortable with that. That's not me. But that's a trait that I have, and if we're relating this to trait leadership, I think it's important to acknowledge that. So, Mann took this and looked at specific personalities in findings of leadership in small groups. He found that personality traits still matter, and they could be used to discriminate a regular leader from a non-leader. I always ask, because remember, we're taking this textbook and we're relating it to the principalship. Do you have teachers in your building that would be horrible administrators? And I'm sure a lot of you do. Are there specific traits that they have that make them people that would be ineffective principals? So they would be great teachers, but they'd be horrible administrators. You might have great administrators that are horrible teachers. There are certain traits that make make the position what it is and make what's necessary to run a building. The work continued with Stodgill in the mid-1970s. Took the study early on in the career, and 26 years later, shows you career trajectory of research, looked at 163 new studies and combined them with the other findings. Found 10 specific characteristics associated with leadership. I'm going to look at each one of them and discuss them a little as part of our class discussion, which I think is important. So take a minute and we can read over these. Then we'll chat about them briefly. So, number one, good leaders want to be responsible, and they take responsibility for completing tasks. I think we could all agree with that. Good leaders are persistent in their pursuit of goals, In school administration, they're ones that have a strategic plan and understand what it is. They're willing to take risks, and they're willing to basically take the fall if something goes wrong that was under their watch. They try to have initiative in social situations. If something's not going well, they'll interfere, they'll help out, and they'll exercise initiative. They should have self-confidence and a sense of personal identity. They look like a leader, they feel like a leader, they act like a leader. And in trait theory, you would believe that. Good principals accept consequences, and they give out praise. Being a principal is not a position where you're going to see a lot of praise. You're going to have to take consequences occasionally. It's part of the job. And you're going to be put in positions you might not want to be in. Good principals also absorb interpersonal stress when they need to. I think that's important. I think that's an important characteristic and quality as well. The ability to tolerate frustration and delay. This is a slow-moving profession. You might want to purchase new textbooks, new materials, and it might take a superintendent vote, a school board vote, and then you might have to go back and look at a different set of textbooks, or you won't get the budget approved. That's going to frustrate some, and there's going to be a lot of delays, especially in getting back standardized tests. Good principals can influence others' behaviors. They can also make it seem like the decisions that they make are your decisions. They also have to have the capacity to structure social interaction systems to the purpose at hand. That's a lot of words there, but this is honestly what I want you to think about in terms of this. This means that when teachers are getting off topic and doing teacher talk, a good principal can step in and say, hey, let's get back on task and make sure that we're following and doing what we need to do. So the next study that followed up on the man study looked at personality traits to differentiate leaders from non-leaders. They found that the best traits that leaders had were they were intelligent, they were masculine, and they were dominant. Once again, let me repeat this. You do not have to believe this. I am not standing up here and I am not saying men are better leaders. Big, dominant, burly, husky men are not better leaders. This is what trait theory of leadership subscribes to and believes. So if you think that's true, great. If you don't think it's true, that's fine. This might not be the theory for you. So Kirkpatrick and Locke found that there were 6 specific qualities really that determine how people view leaders. They have strong motivation, they're confident, they understand what they're doing in terms of their responsibilities, and that's task knowledge. They have a drive, they're dedicated and they're motivated. They have integrity and they're smart. Sociability is off this list, which I think is interesting because they're saying that you could have traits and be a good leader, but you don't necessarily have to be social to others. So now we have today's trait view of leadership, which are the big 5 major leadership traits. If you are looking at the current perspective of trait leadership, this is how it is presented in our research literature. We say that there are 5 specific traits: intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability. This is the big 5 model. So if you are doing trait leadership after you present the historical parts that you may not agree with, then you're going to go back and you're going to look at intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability, because this is what the current perspective of trait theory is. So, intelligence. Good leaders have to be smart, and they have to have higher intelligence than non-leaders. They need to be able to reason well with others, speak well, and understand. Most of the time, it has to be that the leader has a higher intellectual ability than their subordinates, or it has to be similar to the subordinates as well. Most of the time, people have worked underneath leaders that weren't as intelligent and as bright as they were, or you've worked for a leader that was vastly superior intelligence for you. My guess is you did better working for the person that had more intelligence than you did for the person who had less than you. Because a lot of people in this profession, in education, or we're a human profession, we're less likely to follow or support somebody who presents themselves as less intelligent than us. So self-confidence. Principals have to have self-esteem and self-assurance. They have to be certain about what they're doing, their competencies, what they're capable of doing, and their own skills. You will make tough decisions and have tough conversations with your staff all of the time in this field. How you present yourself will make a world of difference into how you're perceived. This is a very challenging profession, especially for new principals, and you're going to have to make tough decisions, cut people's positions, budget decisions that aren't going to go over well, student decisions that are going to impact parents and teachers. So how you present yourself during those conversations is really important, and it's going to make a lot of difference in what you do. You have to have determination. You have to set a goal and achieve that goal. One of the things that I'm going to talk about a lot in your other education classes, not necessarily this one, is the notion of strategic planning. You're going to learn about that in the principalship, and you're going to learn about that a lot in finance as well. I argue that understanding the mission and the vision of the school district, what it's going to look like in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years, is tied to fiscal capacity and also to demographics of the school. So that determination, you have to know what your goal is around what the demographics are and what the fiscal capacity is. And if you can do that, you're going to be a good leader. Integrity, good leaders have full integrity. They're going to be loyal. They're not going to be deceptive. I always ask if people Googled me before starting a class. I think that's important because you get to see who the instructor is, what the instructor's background is, and what they do. Technology can both hurt and help integrity. Decisions that we made when we were in our 20s can come back and haunt us when we're in our 30s, 40s, or 50s. As I record this video, think about what Hulk Hogan is experiencing right now. He's dealing with racial comments that he made 5 and 6 years ago that are just coming out now to really harm him. We live in a world of transparency. At the time that he made those comments, he felt that way, and it's impacting his ability to make money and have an occupation today and in the future. That's very serious. And that's why we must act with integrity as much as we possibly can, whenever we possibly can. Good leaders are social. This third bullet down here really says it all, that principals have to be social, whether they want to or not. One of the challenges that you'll face as a principal is people don't want to see you unless there's a problem, which will be a change from your position as a teacher. So in order for you to actually have social interaction with others, one of the things that you have to do is be able to go out there, put yourself in a position so that others see you, experience you, and also give you the more positive side of leadership. So I'm going to stop the tape right now. That's the end of part 1 of this chapter. We're going to look at some different qualities as well when we continue with part 2 of the video. Thank you.